All right, so I want to have a conversation with an old friend of mine from high school. He's in the military now, but he saw one of my videos and reached out to me, just asking me about reparations and things like that. And I kind of want to start this off just with getting maybe your opinion on that whole deal. And since you came and asked me about it, I'm sure it's pretty similar to it.
Yeah, so my main opinion on it is, like, how can you be responsible for something that happened like years and years ago? Like, you didn't do anything to me, I didn't do anything to you, so why are you paying me anything? And then plus, like, you look at the history of the government just dumping money into, like, these poorer places, and immediately goes to drugs, sex trafficking, stuff like that. And so, like, there's no way to just hand somebody money and be like, all right, go make your life better.
Absolutely. Yeah, I get you, man. I mean, just look at, like, the Indian reservations and all that. Same deal.
Exactly.
But yeah, I kind of wanted to get your just kind of experiences you've had. And just ask about, like, what it was like growing up as, like, a minority, you know, and here in Utah, it's kind of like a lot of white people wandering around. Yeah,
and I, like, it never had an effect on me at all. Like, it was just always whatever. Because, like, I think that's how I was raised, but I feel like back then, not necessarily now, Utah was more conservative, and everyone realized, like, if you're a bad person, you're a bad person, and if you're white, that doesn't make you a bad person, or if you're, like, a minority, that doesn't automatically make you a criminal.
Yeah.
But I feel like the shift now is you're perceived either, if you're darker, you're either perceived as somebody that's a criminal, or if you're white, you're just perceived as somebody that's, like, oppressive.
Yeah.
But it like, didn't even bother me, like, didn't even notice, to be honest. Like, when I was younger, it was just, I was friends with who I liked, and if I didn't like them, I just wasn't friends with them.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I mean, that's how it should be, you know, like, based off of character, not necessarily skin color, which
exactly.
I mean, that's everything nowadays, I feel like.
Yeah, that's all that matters. The first thing I want to know is, like, oh, what color are you?
Yeah.
And that automatically just, that makes people perceive it, and then they're more in favor to hire, like, a black guy or a Mexican because they feel like, oh, they're oppressed or whatever. So now you're just being completely racist because people are like, oh, it's reverse racism. Like, it's just flat out racism because you're judging somebody on the color of their skin.
Yeah, they've made racism kind of a just like a one-way door, you know?
Yeah, that's what they've decided to come up with, which is working for them, sadly, but it's completely false.
And with that, like, what are your thoughts on, like, the BLM and all that?
So, like, my thoughts, like, when it first started, I feel like it was a good, like, thing to make aware. Like, the family that started it, they did pretty good. Like, they were trying to get donations and stuff, and then you saw it just completely taken over by the left.
Yeah.
And now it's become, like, essentially a terrorist group because they've caused, like, $2 billion worth of damage.
Yeah.
And they're just going around burning stuff, looting stores. So, I mean, that's what we classify as a terrorist organization. And so they're just completely off the wall.
Yeah, and you're in the military, and just out of my own curiosity, have you seen any changes in the military since the election?
So not really, not as of yet. Like, now I think you're starting to see other programs like the critical race training. You're starting to see that introduced in different areas. Like, the main thing in the Army, like, we don't have, my unit is very good. Like, nobody really judges based off anything. You're just friends with who you're friends with, and if you can do your job, you're great. If you can't, nobody likes you.
Gotcha.
Nothing to do with skin color, but, like, if you're just a shitbag, you're a shitbag.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not really, not as of yet. But I think we'll start to see it a little bit more. I think it was more, the administration was more focused on, like, taking over other areas before moving to the military. So I think we'll see that within the next year or so.
Yeah, okay.
Easily.
So that's kind of where it's headed then?
That's where I think, yeah.
Gotcha. And do you think what do you think the mainstream of media has had an effect on as far as all this woke crap goes?
Well, I think like the main thing they had to do was getting Biden elected, because they just harped on, like, oh, it's Biden's a better person.
Yeah.
And they were never really, like, they said every policy Trump had was, like, homophobic, like, transphobic or racist.
Yeah.
And so they just hyped Biden up as this real good moral guy, which, I mean, he doesn't know where he's at.
Yeah.
So I don't really know if he has morals, because I don't even think he knows what a moral is at this point. But
yeah.
They're definitely pushing it, and I think like right now they're just harping on Ron DeSantis because they think if Trump doesn't run, he's going to run. So now they're just making him out to be like the worst person on earth.
Yeah. And I mean, I look at everything Ron DeSantis has done in Florida.
Yeah.
And all he's done is give the people back more freedom.
Uh-huh.
I feel like with all of his policies.
Yeah.
But it's absolute madness. I agree with you on that. And
yeah, and you can't get like valuable news out of them anymore, and like you can see the ratings just crashing because Trump's not in.
Yeah.
But like if you just sit there and watch it, you just like end up being like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And like you don't understand what the news story is, but somehow it's either racist or homophobic.
Yeah.
That's all the stories now, apparently.
Yeah. And what do you kind of see as far as the future for America? What do you see happening?
Sadly, I think like the left's going to keep going for a while, because every time the Republicans are in, they just don't do anything.
Yeah.
And they'll talk it up like when they're not in power, and then when they're in power, they try and like either just sit and compromise, or they just don't do anything. So I think it's gonna get to the point where you're gonna start to see states being taken over by like actual libertarian groups that just won't send their people to Congress if they're not gonna like actually pass stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it's gonna get to that point because like the left doesn't like guns, and if it ever comes down to a shootout, they know they can't win.
Yeah.
So I think they're gonna like try and take as many freedoms as they can without causing too much alarm.
Yeah. And that whole deal with Biden saying like you can't beat the government unless you have like nuclear weapons, or what's your whole take on that, being in the military and hearing that?
Well, I just find it hard to find anybody in the military that's like willing to fire on their family, especially if their family, because the majority of like these military families are conservative, but they're like libertarian conservative, where like you leave me alone, I'll leave you alone.
Yep.
And I think you're going to start to see like members of the military, because you're starting to see it with cops, like they're taking away their funding, they're taking away their ability to do their job, and they're just quitting. And if they don't manage the military correctly, I feel like they're going to see people walk away. But like, we didn't join for the reason of policing people. We joined for the reason of like defending the country and like taking care of our families. You know what I mean? I
gotcha.
So
yeah. No, that's good, man. I think it's good to get other people's opinions than just mine, because I know I can come off as quite the douchebag. But I appreciate you coming on, man. It was good to see you, dude.
Not a problem. Good to see you.
And if you like the video, share the video. If you're sick of the bullshit, subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Trigger Effect, because there's going to be more content like this coming your way.
Sounds good to me.
Out.
What's your step?